Welcome to the very first podcast in the new year, in 2024. Happy New Year from us in Liverpool Adventures. With me today, I've got two Davids, two fabulous Davids, two tough ones. Happy New Year first to you, David Fairclough. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Feeling the effects of a little cold. So, as I say, at times maybe clarity might be an issue. Hopefully get over it, but it's only a bit of a cold, and there's a lot of it about at the moment, isn't there?
And you are at the end of a house move, and you've been living for decades in this huge house in Formby next to, you know, close to Klopp and Gerrard and Neely and the boys. How is it to try to sort of empty the house? Have you found a lot of memories from your Liverpool time?
Plenty of memories, plenty of, you're sort of inclined to ignore a bag, and you go and have a look in and find a couple of pairs of old boots, my old shin pads, which a pal was around. He said, when do you think? I said, well, probably I wore them right through, a lot of my career. He said, God, I couldn't believe it. He thought it was anyway, they turned into, they've been utilised in another fashion, supporting a chair at the moment, these shin pads. So who knows, maybe might be a little bit of a memento I can pass on somewhere down the line.
You should put it in the Liverpool Museum.
Bags of all kinds of different things. Well, that's another story.
I think the shin pads should definitely come to the museum. Or we can frame them here in Hotel Tia if you like. That would be nice.
I was surprised to come across. Well, you are, aren't you? When you clear out a house, you don't realise some of the things that have just been, as I say, thrown into a bag and then just been sort of like, things go on top of things, and before you know where you are, you don't see these things for many, many years. So a couple of pairs of old boots there as well. So, that was interesting as well.
You could auction them for the Walton charity.
Yeah, it might have to be a Fairclough charity as well, the way I'm going on.
You might have to. Did you get really sentimental about all the Liverpool stuff you found?
Well, you do, and we had a little chat just before we went on air about pictures and things, but, I found, so many different things, moments of exploits, of interviews, of games and things like that. And it does get, just sort of like make you a little bit melancholy, thinking, where's all the years gone? Nice to have been able to do it, but I don't feel as though I'm anywhere capable of doing some of these things, and that's kind of the sad bit. I'm limping around like an old man, and yet once upon a time I was running around like a bit of a spring, a spring lamb.
You were more than a spring lamb. You were the super striker who scored those vital goals that, without you, we would probably have won our first European Cup. So there you go. This spring lamb can more than sprint, that's for sure. And with us, we also have another David. David Smallwood, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good, and thank you for the very kind invitation.
So we can actually brag that now, David, we've had a proper bodyguard on the show. How cool is that?
Well, there you go. Well, you are getting more popular all the time, Ragnhild. So,
it's not me. No, it's you. It's you, David. But David, we met actually at Anfield over a table. And one of the things I love the most about being a Liverpool fan is how I meet so many fun and interesting and wonderful people. And I have been so privileged and lucky to do that over so many years as a fan. And one of the recent meetings was you. And we started talking, and you just blew me and my husband completely away with what you're doing and your life path. You go into some of the most dangerous areas in the world. Tell us a little bit about the job you do.
We tend not to use the word bodyguard. I mean, we tend to say close protection officer now, more than anything else. My role, I've got several sorts of roles within that security arena. One of them is I specialise in kidnapping ransom prevention in hostile countries such as Afghanistan, Haiti. I'm also a security advisor for several large humanitarian organisations. What we often it's easy to forget that before humanitarian organisations go into these troubled countries, for the duty of care for their own staff, they would normally have to send someone in to do a security assessment, and then at the end of that, it'll be decided should they, or would they be allowed? Is it safe enough to bring aid into them countries? And also, as one of my roles as a close protection officer, sometimes I do some media work. I was lucky enough to do the West Ham game in Prague with Sky. So the role does have quite a few different elements.
Yeah. But you've been into some pretty scary situations. What is it like to go into countries in war and try to do the job the best you can, but at the same time think about your own safety, basically?
I think you do get used to it. I know we were talking to David before we come on air. You tend to work out what you can safely block out in very, very stressful situations. For me, I'm an ex-recon ranger from the military, so I spent 23 years in the military. That was a really good platform for training on how to deal with stressful situations, how to stay focused and only concentrate on information that you can process. You can imagine if you went into these environments and you only look at negatives, how that would affect your whole thought process. So, the training that I've had over the years, or the experience actually I've had over the years, even more so now with Ukraine and lots of other countries, including, I've just come back from Israel. It's all worked. I use that to the advantage to assess a situation, and you may see it as calmness, but your process will constantly think about what is the worst case scenario, what is the best case scenario, and you'll come up with a solution that hopefully works.
But do you get scared in those situations, or are you always as calm as you seem?
No, you should get scared. I think if you are in a situation where you don't get scared, I mean, look at the definition of scared. You could say, are you concerned, worried? It's the same word.
Yeah.
If you didn't have that respect to the environment that you're working in, then it would become quite detrimental to the situation and your assessment. So I wouldn't say scared, but I obviously have a right amount of concern and respect for the danger in them environments.
What kind of countries have you worked in over the years?
Wow. I could sum up even last year alone. Afghanistan, Ukraine several times, Haiti, Burkina Faso, Chad, Mali, Cambodia, Israel. I mean, the list just goes on. I think I was in 17 different countries last year.
Oh, how many days are you away?
Last year, I think probably I was away for about 9 months of the year, 9.5 months.
Wow.
In a year. But I get used to it. I mean, the world is, I think we'd all agree, the world is going through a very, very troubled phase at the moment. And if it wasn't for the joys of football, it'd probably be harder to deal with.
That's actually it, because how many places do you find Liverpool fans?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
We often think that coming from Liverpool, you kind of think that this Liverpool support or the passion is just contained within the limits of Liverpool, but it's not. This passion goes to every single country I've been to, and not just to the capitals. I've found myself in some of the remote places and villages in Africa where I was dropped off, by helicopter because there's no road access. And one of the first things you do is you meet very passionate, I'll say football, I mean Liverpool supporters obviously, but you still have that rivalry even in the bush between Man United and Chelsea and Arsenal. Mm-hmm. And I think we don't realise how passionate our overseas supporters are about this game.
Can you try to tell us a story about some bizarre sort of moments in Liverpool Football Club's history when you are abroad, where those two worlds collide?
I think it coincides with probably one of the best games of football we've ever seen, which was the Barcelona game when we were on the wrong end of a 3-0 half-time result, with the second game being at Anfield. I was actually in probably one of the most remote places I've ever been, which is a place called Toughen in South Sudan, and I was dropped in by helicopter. There's no electricity, there's no road access, and in an environment where people live the traditional way off the field. So you've got mud huts, and although there was a harshness about the place, there was also an element of beauty, because that night when we were playing Barcelona, I was living under a mosquito net, with beautiful starry night. I mean, really beautiful, amazing amount of stars. And in the distance, I could hear these choirs singing and the drums going, of all these songs. But I'd actually, a couple of hours before, I got into an odd conversation with a lot of the people, the locals, and they were talking about the Liverpool game. And now you wouldn't connect the passion with these people. I mean, literally, the amount of passion, and I was surprised. I mean, they knew so much about this game, but where I was more surprised is the passion and how they were looking forward to that game. But what is odd is we rely on, we take for granted our connection with watching football. If you haven't got it on TV, you can get it on a live stream on your radio, or you can watch the live stream on your mobile phone. But when you're in the middle of nowhere and you've got no electricity, you haven't got that luxury. So, I would like to say I knew we were going to win. I didn't think we were going to win 4-0 that night. My brother will argue and say he did, but I really didn't. But there was a little bit of hope. So the only connection I had, I often in remote places use a satellite phone. And a satellite phone is, you pull your big antenna out. It's like an old 1980s phone. So you pull a big antenna out, but it connects directly to the satellite. It takes a couple of minutes to connect up. So I remember, and it's not a smartphone, by the way. You can connect, but you'll get a message off someone, and it's like a normal standard text message. So I text a friend, can you let me know the Liverpool score? And then I had no communication, but I was relaying this to the people. I mean, it's in this beautiful, but very hostile environment. And all of a sudden, I got a little beeping sound off my satellite phone, and we were winning 1-0. So I passed that around, and it was a great bit of excitement. But then I had a completely break of communications for, I think it was about an hour, probably one of the longest hours, to try and wait for the result. And that's why I say here, you go on your phone, you get a result straight away. A whole hour where you can imagine the thought process: are we winning 1-0? Did we get beat 2-1? But then I got this text message come through saying we won 4-0. But it was just, we won 4-0. And I didn't know if it was a wind-up, and I didn't know if to pass this information around, but I thought, may as well. And it was this great buzz. And now it's about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. But no one would go to sleep because, the time difference. So I was trying to get through to my friend, and eventually I got through, and I went, did we win, honestly? And when he said, yeah, we did 4-0, I was in this position, really nice position, to let everyone know. And you've seen the passion, and this is in the most remote place, and you would never feel like the same passion that you get outside Anfield or inside Anfield. You would honestly not think that you would get this anywhere else, but you really, really do.
It's mind-blowing, David, isn't it?
Well, it is, as Dave said earlier on, I mean, I can only liken it, I liken it a bit to when we played, and you think you're playing in front of 50,000 people at Anfield, and that's where it starts and ends. You don't realise that people are picking up, and it's only later years that you pick up that people said, oh, I should listen to this on the World Service and blah, 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 blah. But while you're involved, you're oblivious. You thought, the world started and ended sort of at the walls of Liverpool, So it's amazing. I mean, we see it on a regular basis. being invited by the club to meet supporters before the games and shared some conversation. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking with a couple of people from Nepal, which was a first for me. Never surprised now from actually where people are coming from, but it was their ambition to come to Anfield and to experience what Anfield was all about. That was for the Arsenal game, but it's every corner of the earth these days is touched by the Liverpool family. Yeah.
But David, you're so dependent on breaking the ice in these hostile environments, and you're depending on information and someone you can trust. Have your Liverpool heart been an important tool for you sometimes in these kind of mapping out situations where you need your network?
Yeah, I think I mentioned at the beginning, one of the things I specialise in is kidnapping, ransom prevention. As part of that training, oddly enough, we talk about communication if you end up, unfortunately, in a situation like that. And you talk about things that you should encourage, subjects that you should encourage to talk about, and things that you shouldn't. Obviously, politics and religion is off the table. But the number one subject to sort of bridge this communication is football. And it highlights what I'm saying. Most people, I would say, have some sort of opinion or support or allegiance to a football team. And it's odd thing, because if you meet someone who supports Liverpool, and if you meet them for the first time in a completely different culture, in a completely different, quite a hostile environment, you actually think there's a bond. Just because they say, what team do you support? Liverpool. You kind of feel this bond because you say, I do also. And I would often, show them photographs of players I've been lucky enough to talk to. Or I'll share stories about, Super Dave when he came on and scored goals. And you kind of love this, the way you can get this bond just because you support a football team.
It's amazing. And you were a Liverpool fan since you were little, because you grew up in Kirkby at the same area as Phil Thompson. For those who don't know where Kirkby is, it's where the new training ground is, by the way, and where all the kids now in the academy has been for years. Tell us a little bit about how you become a Red.
Well, my family are all Red, so that was very, very easy. My dad was and still is a very sort of passionate Red. One of the great stories I love about Kirkby. Kirkby's about 7 miles away from Anfield, down the East Lancs Road. And my father was a lorry driver, and he drove a 7.5 ton open back truck. And what we used to do is on match day, and this is hard to, if you try and relate this to the modern world, it would never be allowed to happen. But on match day, I used to go out and I used to tie 2 scarves, one to each wing mirror. And then we'd set off from Kirkby. And the first set of lights, traffic lights where you got stopped, all of a sudden 10 people would jump on the truck, the back. But there's about 15 set of lights before you get to Anfield. And I guarantee every single time, by the time we got to Anfield and we'd park up this truck, it was a lot easier to park them days, we'd have probably 70 people all crowded. I mean, it was an open back truck with the panels around the side, or the sides were only maybe 3 foot high. So everyone had to stand, and you can imagine how dangerous that was, stopping and starting. But it was the same on the way back. After the game, my father, myself, and some of his friends, we'd walk back to the vehicle, and we'd suddenly look, and the back of the vehicle would be full of people, all waiting for the reverse trip. And every time we stopped at lights, they would jump off, and by the time I got home, there was just me, my father, and possibly, one of his friends. And that was one of my first memories of going to the game, and amazing memories.
The LFC truck from Kirkby, here it comes. Yeah. Amazing.
And it's, you can imagine trying to put that on today's health and safety. Driving past a police car with 70 people standing up in an open back truck. Yeah, you wouldn't get very far at all. No.
And you were put in the boys' pen. Tell us about that.
That was, for those people who don't know the boys' pen, it was a small area in the COP. which I think was a lot cheaper to pay in. And it was a shilling, was it? And what would happen is, you know, the fathers would often take the sons to the game. It would normally involve a couple of drinks, and then I would go and find my way into the boys' pen. And inside the boys' pen, I can't remember, there was a couple of hundred boys inside there. And it was basically just an area inside the cop, in the corner, that had like prison bars. I mean, literally, there's no other way of putting it, you know, really thick prison bars. But for me, I'd go there and I'd spend the first half watching the game. But then at half time, I'd had a pre-arranged place by the bars where I'd meet my father and some of his friends. And I'd put my arm through, and they would pull me through the bars, which was fine when I first started going the game. I was, you know, 5 or 6 years of age. But over the couple of years, I was getting bigger and bigger. Now, you know, these people were still drinking, so they were not going to stop pulling. Till eventually, I actually got my head stuck in the bars.
Oh no!
And I remember it was really painful. But it didn't stop them from pulling. You can imagine if it had 3 or 4 pints them days, to say we're going back to health and safety. It wasn't a case of let's consider disease. It was a case of let's pull harder.
No.
And that was the last time I actually went into the boys' pen. And then I was lucky enough to get into the cop. And also, to me, the cop was an amazing adventure. I didn't see a goal for 2 years.
Because you were too short.
I was too short, yeah. I mean, my dad would put me on his shoulders. But he couldn't do that for you know, the first and second half. And quite often I would then jump down, and it was like a fairground, you know. Every time, you can remember, Dave, how the cop would move. Every time, you know, it would be a goal or a near miss or a corner, you could actually be pushed 30, 40, 50 metres.
Wow.
Yeah, and then back up.
The sway was massive, yeah. It was like a sea, wasn't it? I started in the boys' pen. The popular route into the cop was climbing over the rail.
Yeah, I remember.
Used to be a policeman, there'd be on the other side, and then occasionally the policeman kind of disappear. I was never brave enough actually to climb up. I was a bit of I saw it out. Saw most of the games. 3/4 is what we used to call 3/4 time. Gates would open around the ground, so you could leave the boys' pen and find your way into the ground somewhere else, be it the cop or the paddock or these things. Obviously, times have changed dramatically. Getting in and out the game now is a military exercise.
I'm just wondering, was there any boys left in the boys' pen in second half?
Oh yeah, the maybe towards the end, as those who you know, that was your introduction into main sort of areas. So certainly for those, there were plenty who were brave enough to climb over the railings at the top. I say I never ventured, but it was a great experience. Strangely, I've spoken to a couple of lads down the years who said how dangerous it was in there. I never felt sort of. I was in there early and was always quite at the front, but people used to talk about how tough it was in there. There was kind of a bit of if you were from a certain area of the town, you would be picked on by others. And I never experienced that either. But Dave Kirkby, the playwright, I mean, he waxes lyrical about the boys' pen and tells some good tales. It was a great experience, wasn't it? It's a great part of you growing up and getting into the Liverpool, Liverpool family, let's say. Those memories are unbelievable, and they're flashing in front of my eyes as we speak.
It's it's a story I try and explain to a modern parent, or even someone who's 10, 11. The concept of the boys' pen, you look at you in horror. What you were dropped off there with all these people, and it was bars. Very much, it would look from the outside like a prison.
Cage,
like a cage. I mean, literally, people had their own little groups and gangs. I never seen it. I can't remember seeing any trouble in there. But it was like, if you can imagine a prison yard where you did have these collective groups.
Wow.
Some were bigger than the others. You could also spot, and I was one of these people myself, and I know David was, when it was your first day there, because you tend to stand alone and you were, just frightened little 6, 7. And I don't want to say frightened as you were worried, because you never felt that you'd get any harm. But it was an introduction to coming to the game in a safe environment. It must have been, because I can't remember.
Yeah, your dad would drop you off. He'd go around to where my dad was in the Kemlin Road stand. But feature of the boys' pen, I remember, and just comes to me now. You come through the turnstiles, and they had these big steps, and you could run up them quite sort of, very quickly, because they were very wide steps. To get up and to see the outfit, just to see the pitch, because you came in and then you see the pitch, and that was the was the buzz you got of racing into the place. But in those days, I mean, you got to the game 2 or 3 hours before the game. It wasn't like last minute, 15 minutes before, 10 minutes before the game.
Hanging out in Hotel Tia for hours first.
Yeah, you were there hours in advance, and seeing the atmosphere build up and the cop, the ground gradually fill up. It was magical days.
And also remember the Cop them days. What numbers would you have in the Cop?
27,000.
Yeah, it was all standing.
It's a lot of people.
It was a lot of people them days. I mean, I'm not too sure. I mean, they still stand in the Cop now, to the credit. It's very
but now it's only 12,500.
Is it 12,500 now? Is it?
Yeah.
So you can imagine the way the Cop is now, but you can imagine it with 25, 30,000 of everyone standing up, and they weren't the official figures, because it wasn't that difficult to get into the stadium them days.
No. Some of the rules were broken. Yeah.
Well, quite often, yeah. I mean, I forgot about the gate. All the gates opened 20 minutes before the end, and when I say opened, not controlled opened, they basically just opened all the gates. So another couple of thousand people would then come into venture in. So. Yeah.
I love when you talk happy days. I love when you talk about the boys' pen. You both are just smiling, big grins. If you're only listening to this, they're sitting here with big smiles. You can see this on YouTube as well, by the way. But if you're only listening, they are. And that's not only because the best pictures are in the radio. When you were growing up, watching the game from the boys' pen, who was your first big hero playing for Liverpool?
Probably Kevin Keegan initially. Kevin Keegan was a different level of footballer. I remember Phil Thompson, because he didn't live too far from us, and when he won the the European Cup, he took it to the Falcon pub. This is how the community has changed.
Did you go?
Yeah, of course I did. Yeah,
so you were there?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, I've heard so many times the story about the Falcon pub, and you were actually there.
It was just really just around the corner.
Seen the pictures there, yeah.
Oh, have you got pictures from it as well?
Well, the sad thing about photographs, I probably have, and I know Dave was talking about going through his old photographs. I'm kind of hoping one day, I know I've got a couple of photographs of Elman Hughes and Ray Clements. Hopefully I'll find them one day.
Yeah.
The European Cup was brought to the Falcon.
Well, the whole world press was waiting for it. I love that.
Wondered where it was.
Yeah.
It was hiding away in Kirkby.
But it didn't seem a massive big... it was a big thing.
Yeah.
But because football was so connected to the community, it seemed like a natural thing. I mean, it
I
wasn't...
suppose we've seen years in the past where you think to yourself, well, it might have just disappeared, But I mean, it was a kind of a... I don't know, it's sort of a... I can't describe the time that it existed. It was quite a natural thing. Okay, the cup was here, but I mean, no one thought of stealing it. Although, things have disappeared down the years. But the European Cup that night spent the night in Kirkby,
and then on the bedside table.
You're absolutely right. It was literally bouncing around. It wasn't, Speaking as a close protection officer now, we don't always look after people sometimes as assets. Nowadays, you would have probably 2 close protection officers looking after the European Cup. The memories I have in the Falcon was this thing was just getting bounced around.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, Tomo didn't appear to have sort of been the bodyguard for the night.
No.
It was just a case of off he goes, he's having a pint at the bar, and the thing was probably in some corner.
It was just bouncing around.
He let his shiny baby be shared for the night. His excuse for the listeners is, though, that when you guys won the League Cup a few weeks earlier, the League Cup trophy disappeared, and then the cleaners of the bus company found it at the back seat. So then Phil, being the captain at the time, got told off, saying, Phil, next time we win a trophy, you look after the trophy. So he literally looked after the trophy. So he was the bodyguard, but a bodyguard who would be a bit flexible in terms of the surroundings.
One of the things about the European Cup was, and so there's a couple of times to people down the years, didn't have that many pictures taken with the European Cup because it was so heavy. People didn't tend to hang on to the European Cup that way. You'd lift it and think, have a quick moment, picture taken, pass it on, because the thing weighs, it weighed a ton, particularly at the end of a match as well. So it's how blasé we were about the European Cup in those days. The prize we wanted most, but blasé about the actual, trophy itself.
Sometimes it annoys me when people talk about hate games in football. This is a war. This is the ultimate hate game, and especially when we play Manchester United. You being in so many war zones, what do you think about people trying to sort of build up to these conflicts in football as if it's like a proper war?
Yeah, it's something that I really detest, to be honest. I mean, rivalry's amazing. You have to have rivalry. Even through my military days, inter-unit, you always had this rivalry, inter-company, inter-platoon. Rivalry is a good thing to have because from a competitive side, it pushes you on. When the rivalry goes into hate, it becomes, really, really bad. I'm not too sure if you remember 2 years ago when Old Trafford had the security incident where people broke in, smashed. I was actually got a phone call from a media group who they sometimes task me to work for different media channels, and they asked me if I was anywhere around the area, and I said yeah, and he said, could you pop down to Old Trafford because we've got a camera crew down there and it's just kicking off. There's a lot of protest, and one thing that I wouldn't normally do anything with Sky or BBC in Old Trafford because obviously I have a Scouse accent. But I foolishly said, yeah, I'm not too far away. So I parked up not too far away from the stadium. And then I was walking towards the stadium. And it was very much like going into, like a large-scale protest, quite a violent one. There was bottles thrown and stuff, which is really disappointing. But what I do remember is every other song was like an anti-Scouse song. I understand you were protesting because of, financial issues and stuff, being unhappy with development of the team. But it literally was, every other song was. So I'm going there now trying to catch up to the presenter from Sky. And my phone goes and I'm surrounded by about 400 very sort of angry Mancunians. And I was just about to answer my phone and thought, it's probably not a good idea to answer my phone with a Scouse accent in the middle because it was so, I was shocked by the level of violence. And I don't think football, we're not talking about rivalry here because it's you should have rivalry against football.
Yeah. When
that crosses over to this level of hate, it's not a nice thing. It's not good for the sport. It's not good for supporters. And it shouldn't be promoted in any way at all. There's no justification for, hostile support and hostile words against another football team.
Because what you've seen out there in the world of like real horrible conflicts, and you've probably seen some of the worst sides of humans really sometimes. For me, and I'm just talking for me now, I'm thinking football is such an escape from all your everyday life, your worries, your stress. It's like I sometimes joke and say it's like my mental yoga. So I go there and I pause the world and, whatever I'm stressing about or worrying about, or if I haven't been able to pay my bills or whatever it is, I go into Anfield and it's my free time. So I just don't get why you would then take that wonderful opportunity of giving yourself a really positive boost and some peace. Not peace in that sense of course I'm passionate and I get you worked up and stuff, but it's that break from all the real horrible things that can happen in someone's lives. Do you guys agree?
Obviously, it's very tribal, and as Dave says, about having that sort of competitive edge, which is good, drags you on. But I mean, we've seen different eras whereby that tribal has gone to different degrees, and having come through the 70s and stuff, and seen all the hooliganism that attached itself to football in those days, it was brutal and hated, and we kind of moved on. The tribalness still exists, but I think it's glad to see that the violence is no longer there. I mean, walking around the ground in recent weeks, just we've had big supports from Arsenal, Newcastle, and the like. And you can, there's no fear or bad, real sort of anger around, and you're able to sort of walk past each other. Whereas years ago, I mean, the segregation and separating fans and one thing, it was very it was a big thing. So the hatred still goes on in a way. Thankfully, people don't attach to as much violence to it, I think, which is, you can take that sort of maybe, I don't know, as long as it's only words and it's not too hard-edged, we've had those, we've all clubs have experienced certain tragedies and things like that, and nobody really wants those to be dragged up. That's when it sort of, at this day and age, that's where it goes oversteps the
I think a lot of it now is directed towards owners. Certainly when I went down to Old Trafford with Sky, it was very directed towards the owners of the stadium, and also fans' perceptions changed. I spoke to some amazing Man United supporters who are equal to the passion. I mean, that's what you find. There's no difference. The more passionate a fan is, the more you actually probably have in connection with that individual. But I remember shortly after the main protest had finished, I was speaking to a couple of the United supporters, and I said, "What is it? I know you're anti-Glazier at the moment. What is it you're after?" And he went, "Well, investment in the team." But at that stage, Man United had actually, I think they were third in Europe for how much they'd invested in players. So sometimes what drives this hatred is more a fan's perception of where they should be. There's no, just because you've got a lot of money, it won't always guarantee your success. No. I mean, the question about Man City's, is a big question that's still ongoing. You used to talk about Big Four. How many big? Is it a Big Six now?
David, everyone goes through some traumas in life, some more than others, and obviously you've gone into some pretty traumatic situations over decades. What would be your best advice for people to try to handle their traumas?
It's definitely a very sort of troubling stage of where the world is at the moment. Advice, I'd say communicate to people. One of the things that I've certainly discovered is that having the ability to talk to people is crucial to deal with, anxiety or stress, or even if you've got PTSD. It is strange to say that a lot of the places that I go to, some of the most amazing people are the people who've been through so much. They seem to be a bit more sincere about how they talk about things, a little bit more open. And it's that openness that can actually give you a lot of sort of, a lot of relief in dealing with anxiety or stress.
So communication, basically. Talk.
Well, it's not, I don't think it's just a case of talk. It's about, it's amazing when you meet someone and you start talking to them, you can get some sort of connection with that person. I think it feels good if someone has a connection or can relate to certain things that you've experienced. That can go a long way in removing anxiety or stress or PTSD. Don't think that there's always one solution for everyone, because there's not. I'm lucky enough now to work with some amazing people who teach resilience on trauma. And when I sit in their presentations, I'm amazed by how they can assess a certain thing, but it always goes down to the most fundamental parts of being a human being. It's not high tech. It doesn't rely on technology. it's about communicating, being honest with your feelings, not being judgmental about you know, what people have gone through or even the actions that they've done. As an ex-soldier, you know, we often went into environments where we were told what to do. You know, so not being judgmental about how people have behaved or what they've done in the past, but try and understand the situation that they were in. And I think that's probably the best advice that I could give.
So many men, though, do not want to talk when things are difficult. Do you think that's getting any better, or are we still there where men are just silently suffering?
I was certainly one of them people, without a doubt. When you talk about so many men, it's not the man's fault. It was more of a cultural fault. You know, military days, we were just not allowed to talk about anything that was stressful. It was seen as a sign of weakness. I've got some friends who are, you know, are in the police, and they said exactly the same thing. They're quite senior now. You know, if you ever were involved in a stressful situation and then you dare to say it affected you, it was always considered as a negative, not a positive. And so what has changed now is having the ability to say, you know, that did affect me. And, you know, by talking about it, I think it will go, you know, it will help me process what happened. And then we all want to move on, and we all want to live a happy life. Because that's the aim of, really, that's the meaning of life more than anything else.
Do you sleep at night with everything you've seen and done?
Yeah, I do actually, yeah. I think I'm still very much part of an industry that I joined at 16 years and 9 months old, which is the military, you know, going into challenging environments. I never left that, because when I eventually left the military, I went into diplomatic protection. I was head of the embassy in Baghdad in Iraq. I was head of the embassy in Libya. And then from there, I went into, you know, kidnapping ransom. So I've still always been part of this environment. And I think you only get real problems when you completely disconnect. And maybe see it with professional footballers. Gascoigne probably comes to mind. You know, you're very much a main part of something. And then all of a sudden, you're not. Age doesn't help. You know, we all get old. Your body starts failing a little bit, and it's quite easy to sort of look at negatives, and it's having the ability to look at positives more than anything else.
My final question to you, David Smallwood. What does Liverpool Football Club mean to you?
It means everything to me. You know, it's memories from my father taking me the very first time to the cop and put me on his shoulders. I'm lucky enough to support a team that's been quite successful over the years. Of course, we've had, you know, bad times, but I always think that you have to experience rain to appreciate the sun, and Liverpool gives us so many sunny days, and it may not be the most important thing, because it's not. I mean, it's certainly not the most important thing, but sometimes, you know what, it just feels like it is.
And that's lovely. When the world can just be Liverpool Football Club and nothing else.
When you get a good result, you know, all your troubles seem to sort of disappear. Not forever, and, you know, we shouldn't expect that to happen. But for that little amount of time, then, you know, everything seems to be right.
Dearest David Smallwood and dear David Fairclough, thank you so much for your time today and your lovely stories. And I have to say all the best with the year to come, David, because, you know, you have a lot of challenges and big tasks ahead of you in a very troubled world. So thank you for all the safety you create around you in the world. And I have to say thank you to everyone listening to this. My name is Ragnhild Lund Ansnes, and you've been listening